I'm civil rights attorney Carol Powell Lexing, and welcome to the Carol Powell Lexing Show. I hope to inform you with knowledge and information based on my 30-year plus experience in the legal system that will keep you connected to pertinent issues affecting our country and the community. And right now we have basically a hot topic going on. But before I get into that, I always like to give an affirmation because I believe that we all need uplifting, we all need encouragement. So before I get started, my affirmation for today says, another day, another blessing, and another chance at life. Take nothing for granted and think of every breath as a gift from God. Now, we're about to get into our hot topic for the day. We are going to explore and try to figure out what the heck is going on in Florida, because you have this anti-intellectual, you have this racist sanitizing of Black history that for some reason the Department of Education has been bending to the powers that be in Florida that's trying to prevent Black history from moving forward. And here to facilitate that discussion today is we have Mr. Neil Phillips. Mr. Phillips is the Chief Diversity Officer at the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. He has a strong history as an educator / administrator, as co-founder of the Visible Men Academy in Florida. And Mr. Phillips, we warmly welcome you to the show because we have a lot to discuss today, and I know you have a lot to share. I can tell, and I'm excited about it. So let's talk about what the heck is going on in Florida.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And just tell us a little something about yourself.
Well, I always want to start and end with the fact that I'm a husband and a father. And my wife and kids are the joys of my life, along with my extended family and friends. I am deeply attached to promoting and celebrating equal human value.
Right.
I think that is the most succinct way I can summarize what I do personally and professionally. And on the professional end, that tends to get a title. It gets a category, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DE&I, fancy titles, all of those things, which I understand. I understand the role that those play. I'd like to think that my interest goes deeper than a title or a categorization, and it's around promoting and celebrating equal human value.
Right. Today we're going to be discussing the Advanced Placement African American, history curriculum, better known as the AP African American curriculum. That's I think 60. There are 60 pilot studies across the country that are going forth right now as we speak. But then we have this situation down in Florida that we want to make sure does not come to be like a domino effect with the prohibition and the sanitizing of Black history. And speaking of Black history, in the midst of Black history, we're fighting Black history. We're fighting anti-intellectual, and we're fighting anti-Black history scenarios going on down in Florida. Can you just speak on that?
I can. I am certainly not a curriculum expert or an expert in the advanced placement, nor am I a political spokesperson, but I can say you talked about this being a hot button issue, and it certainly is, for a number of reasons. That there, as you mentioned, there is an AP African American history course being piloted in 60 schools across the country. And it is actually the first new advanced placement course that the College Board, the governing body of the AP curriculum, has introduced in about 10 years. So it's no small undertaking on their part. And to develop an AP curriculum, that's a heavy lift. And no different in this case. Henry Louis Gates, one of the great historians of our time, His name is associated with this undertaking, as well as many, many others on advisory committees, development boards, who are working to piece this together with the support and the help of university professors as well. And advanced placement courses, they span all kinds of different curriculum areas, math, economics, psychology, and beyond. And the idea is that an advanced placement course has a higher level of rigor than your typical high school course, and it is designed to approximate what a college course will feel like for aspiring college students who are high school seniors and who want to push. They also provide the opportunity to gain college credit and placement advantage if you score at a certain level on the AP test that is administered at the end of the coursework in the spring.
Right. And it's very important to have these courses. And it's very important to have for students, whether they black or white or Asian or whatever their background is, for us to get to know each other in order to move forward to try to eradicate some of the racism that's going on in America. And it just behooves me and the rest of the country that you have people like Ron DeSantis down in Florida who is definitely trying to prohibit black history. We know that you can't stop black history. You can't stop any history. History is history. It is what it is. And you cannot stop it. But you seem to have, like I said, started off saying this anti-intellectual, anti-black history type of mentality, which is rooted in racism, going on with the head of the state trying to prohibit the country from knowing what's, black people have played a very instrumental part in helping build this country. And it's important that every race, everyone gets to know basically how we fit into this country. Now, we know that Florida has a law that says that black history must be taught, and it has to include the history before the political conflicts that led to the development of slavery, the passage to America, the enslavement of experience, the abolition, and the history and contributions of Americans of the African diaspora to society. Now, they have a law that says that. So you got now this person, this governor, who's trying to come back with another law called the Stop Woke Act or something he created off the top of his head, trying to prohibit the laws that they already have into effect. And it's causing a disservice to the students. It's causing a disservice to all the students, regardless of what their races are, because it's very important that we get to know our history. And one thing about it, you can't stop history. So what do you think, basically, are you, so let me just ask you this, are you surprised at what is going on down in Florida?
So the answer to that question is no. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised. This is part of a broader landscape that is playing out across the state, and certainly, in the town. I'm a Bradenton resident, and right in Sarasota, literally, a 3-4 mile drive from where I currently sit, is New College. State-funded college, small college in Sarasota, that has recently gone, and when I say recently, within the last 24, 48 hours, has recently gone a leadership overhaul at the direction of our governor, replacing the president, replacing board members.
So he wants to handpick people.
Even that, yeah, and it's a part of a bigger reaction to. When you hear the phrase culture wars, I mean, this is one of the ways that it's playing out, and certainly it's playing out across our state in a pretty significant way. And there are some headlines today talking about the next target being at the university level, funding for any diversity, equity, and inclusion program that would now be banned. So there's a lot of this happening. So no, I am not surprised. I think it's important to point out a couple of things here. One, the AP African American History course is in a pilot phase. This is part of the process. A course gets put out in essentially a draft form, and the schools that are participating in the pilot program then provide feedback along the way. And then it goes back into the lab and then gets reintroduced as part of a later stage of the pilot to more schools who then provide feedback. And then ultimately, it gets refined to a place where they say, okay, we have our course now. And until that happens, it's not an official AP course. So the notion of banning the course in this stage, this is the phase in which feedback is offered, received, assessed, incorporated, or not. So there is, I just want to be clear that this is very much a part of the process of the AP program. It's my belief that there are a couple of things that are really, really problematic here. One is that let's acknowledge that this is part of the process. Two, when you think about the well-being of our students and you think about the purpose of education, one of the things that we're hearing quite often now is that we're hearing the phrase that we want education, not indoctrination. And that word indoctrination, there seems to be some belief that exposure equals indoctrination. And to me, the biggest problem with that is that it totally demeans the ability of our students and our teachers to be discriminating young adults and adults, to consume information and then through their intelligence and their wisdom and their intellectual curiosity and inquisitiveness, make determinations about how they feel about what they are consuming. This is what education is. This is the education process.
Right.
So to make this assumption that exposure to a particular piece of information automatically means indoctrination is taking the human ability to discern and determine for ourselves completely out of it. And I think that's incredibly demeaning to our young people, who I have all kinds of faith in their ability to consume information, be it controversial, be it something they disagree with, and make those determinations on their own.
Right. And some of the subjects that they've taken out of there are very important, such as Black queer studies. You have the Black Lives Movement, reparations, and Black feminist literary thoughts. Now, what's illegal? What's bad about all of those topics? What is so wrong with that? What makes that illegal, other than the powers that be in Florida, instead of accusing us of indoctrinating the students, it just seems like that's what they're doing. They're trying to trying to push an indoctrinating agenda to keep the truth from coming out. And
well, I tell you,
all those issues are part of Black history that needs to go. The students need to learn about. And like you said, the students should be given the opportunity to discern what they want to believe or not believe, but at least be exposed and educated to those issues. And so how could that be so bad is what I'm trying to ask you. How can it be bad?
And I tell you, I don't have an answer to that because I don't believe it's bad. I understand and support and encourage an age appropriateness, an age appropriate lens whenever you're talking about curriculum material or literature to which our young people are going to be exposed. Age appropriateness is a critical threshold and lens through which to examine content and material that our young children are going to be to which they're going to be exposed. I don't see that applying in this case at all. And I think it's important to think about a couple of things. One, when you have high school age students who have elected to take a course at this level, and it is an elected decision that they must make. It's not part of the core curriculum. So they're choosing to take this course.
Right.
They're choosing to have the rigor associated with this course. These are young people who are more than capable of applying that discriminating mindset to the material in which they consume. And what I will also say is, in this day and age, and it's only going one direction, they are consuming this content beyond our classrooms.
That's
They're
right.
doing it on that device that's in their pockets and most often in their hands.
That's right.
So if we, as institutional educational institutions, don't provide them with a full breadth of the content that is attached to the subject matter, they're going to get that elsewhere. And if they're able to get it elsewhere and can see that they're deliberately not getting it in their schools, I'll tell you what sets in. What sets in is not opposition on their part. What sets in is something worse, which is apathy.
Right.
If they realize that school is not the source for all of the information, then they write off that as a source of information, and then they go to their phones and then they go get it on their own. So I just think that this is a real opportunity to meet the students where they are, which is perfectly capable of consuming information, making determinations on their own as to where the level of validity they want to place on it. And the last thing I'll say on this point, the truth is we've been doing this for decades and decades with current and existing curriculum, right? If these folks are going to apply this level of scrutiny to this particular course, I'm hoping they're going to apply that level of scrutiny to all of the courses that are out there that we have been consuming this information for decades, hearing about people discovering countries where there were already people inhabiting.
Yeah, i.e. Columbus Day. Yes, we must say that.
If we're going to be discriminating this course in that way, I sure hope we're going to apply that same lens to everything out there so that we can say, okay, let's reset things in a very comprehensive way. Sadly, I don't believe that's the plan.
Right, and it's so discriminatory because you have other curriculums involving other cultures, and you don't hear about the sanitizing of those type of studies. You're right. They have turned that into political, accusing us of turning it into political, when they're the ones that's turning it into political by prohibiting the kids from learning.
Yeah,
and learning the truth.
That right there, your point right there, Carol. If I had $1 for all of the times I heard something posed as, we have to look out for what's best for our children, only to realize that was a Trojan horse for some other agenda, it saddens me
Precisely.
greatly, because to see instances where that phrase, what's best for our children, is really just a cover for something else. It's sad, because what's best for our children should be just that. The consideration should be purely what's in the best interest of our children. And listen, as I said earlier, I'm not here saying that the AP course doesn't need its adjusting and doesn't need its review and subsequent kind of
amendments,
sort of reinvention and revision. That's all part of the process that every single AP course that is currently in existence underwent. And so this is part of the process. If there are elements of the course that need to be refined or augmented or reduced in some way, that's what this process is designed to glean. And so I have all the faith in the world that the folks who are doing this with College Board, the expertise that they put together, the college and university consultation that they're getting, let's let the process do what the process is designed to do and has proven to be able to do for a very, very long time.
Well, if you allow the process to do what it has been designed to do, then that will be a problem for those that, like you said, we want to do what's in the best interest of our children. Where in the best interest of the children is to perpetuate racism. So that's so if it wants, because see, they're fighting it so hard to keep it out. Anytime people fight so hard against something, you know that you're on the right path of doing the right thing.
I so
And
appreciate
eventually it's
you said
going to
that.
take place. It may not be now, but eventually uh, Black history will be taught the way Black history is supposed to be taught. And that's
Yeah,
to
I love
include
that
those
point.
topics that
Yeah,
they
I
have
love
taken
that
out.
point. I think that when you say, I think it's important to consider what is this position to, I want to get this right grammatically, to what is this position a reaction to? And your point about all of the fervor and intensity in reaction to this, it does say something.
A lot.
It's a reaction to something that seemingly is gaining more and more power, more and more strength, that feels threatening to some. And I think it's important to think about what those things are. And I think one of those things is increased voice, right? I feel like so much of what we're seeing along these lines, I think, is a reaction to the emerging reality of a shifting racial and ethnic demographic in our country.
For sure.
That
And
is the reality. And whenever you have a situation where there is a group that has been very, very accustomed and deeply embedded in being the majority, when things start to shift in the direction of change and that majority position becomes threatened, it's not uncommon to see all kinds of reactions to try to grasp on to what's familiar and what they believe should be held perpetually. And that's why I think this situation, we're talking about an AP high school course,
right.
but there's much more to this than that.
Right. And I think there's an underlining concept that the South is going to rise again, but the
Mm.
South will never rise again. And shall never. I'm going to use shall because shall is mandatory. I did learn that in education, okay? That's why education is important. That's why teaching Black history is important for these kids to be educated about Black history.
Mm.
But I do want to know, what is the difference between the AP studies versus CRT?
Yeah, that's a great question. So CRT, critical race theory, really gained, sort of got in the national spotlight over the last 12 months, 12 to 18 months, beyond the academic circles. It was certainly in the spotlight in academic circles for a long time, but it became sort of mass media news in that recent period. And basically, critical race theory talks about and has at its core the notion that racism needs to be viewed through a systems lens. That when you look at racism, you can look at it on an individual person to person basis. You can even look at it on a community basis, and you must look at it in a systems basis. How do the systems that are in place perpetuate or diminish racist behavior and attitudes and policies and procedures? So there's more to it than that, but that's the thrust of it. Critical race theory is something entirely different than the breadth of this proposed AP coursework and this developing AP coursework. It apparently is a dimension, meaning that it is referenced. But again, the idea that you put this out to students and have them debate, learn, disagree, argue, and all of those things. But so critical race theory is not equal to this AP coursework in any way, shape, or form. And frankly, as an educator and started a kindergarten through fifth grade school, and when I was hearing about this critical race theory and how we had to ban that from our elementary schools, I can tell you from personal experience, we didn't have a single second to spend any time on critical race theory while trying to get our children to learn how to read and add and say please and thank you and conduct themselves with character on the playground. So much of this needs to be explained. It needs context. And in many ways, you can start to feel a kind of grasping at straws kind of a thing, to see what sticks, and can generate some opposition.
Right, right. And I'm pretty much glad that one of my colleagues, Benjamin Crump, is leading the charge on fighting against this discriminatory efforts that's been made by the governor down there, banning. And they went so far as they got, when I say they, meaning Florida, got their legislators to pass that, what do you call it, Stop Woke Act, which makes no sense. But like I said, the fight goes on. We have to fight. Like they created laws back in the 60s to prohibit us from moving forth. Now we see it again in Florida. But one thing about it, we are in a new dispensation of time where social media is the moving force, and social media helps people see different things in different lights and bring up topics and move information that could not have been moved like in the 60s. Whereas when these lawsuits beginning to get filed, or when the lawsuit is being filed down in Florida, hopefully, if this situation as far as banning these AP classes regarding Black history starts having a domino effect, then hopefully, all of us will will lawyer up and move forward with the fight. And we're ready to fight because it's very important to protect history. History is history, and you can't change it.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I think that it is important to consider this, frankly, a multi-front battle, and the legal front, as you well know, given your prolific and impactful history, that legal front is critical, as is the political front, as is the community advocacy front, as is the education reform front, as is what we do, who we are as parents and family members, and influencing the lives of young people. I mean, it's a comprehensive effort that needs to be brought to bear, to ensure that we as a nation continue to move in the right direction.
Right.
And that to me is absolutely critical.
And that's important and critical for all of us that live in this country, and really critical throughout the world. And that is to get to know who we all are and understand, so that we can live in peace and harmony without being discriminatory toward one another. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Are you Dr. Neil Phillips? I want to give you a title.
Well, my mother would certainly be impressed and pleased if you were to give me that title, but I haven't earned that title in any formal way, in any way, shape, or form. So you're kind. I just want to say thank you for having me. And I just am so grateful that you closed the way you did when you mentioned the word harmony. Because so often when these types of things come up, we lose sight of what the ultimate goal is. And here we are, day one of Black History Month, little over 2 weeks after the celebration of Dr. King's birthday. And that movement that Dr. King spearheaded, the civil rights movement, it's often forgotten because of how focused it was on the rights of Black people. It's often forgotten that the ultimate sort of aspiration for that movement was harmony. It went far
Peace.
Beyond those things. And this is about all of us not ignoring our difference, not being colorblind, but actually seeing and celebrating our differences and living in harmony with those differences. So I appreciate that you said that. And to me, there's no better thing on which to close.
Well, we're closing, and thank you. It was our privilege. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, audience, for joining us. And make sure you check out my webpage at carolpowellexinglaw.com, and also tune in to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all those social media functions that are out there. Until we meet again, thank you.